So to get back, we have covered exactly why the kick is like it is. So snare, again, as it's like your two main transient intensive sounds in the song are always going to be the kick and the snare, because they're like the real hard smacking beat of the tune. You know, they are the heart of it. So each one of those really needs to crack. So the processing on each one is relatively similar in that you're probably going to EQ it to either emphasize or cut wanted or unwanted frequencies, and then you're going to use a selection of or a dynamic processor to enhance the transient appeal of the sound, so to say. So on this particular one, I've got an EQ which isn't actually doing a lot. I've just got a tiny little boost around 200, which is usually where your snare will hit, between about 200 and 300. 250 is kind of pretty good. If I play this now with the analyzer on, in fact you can see it's bang on 200. So I have boosted that, although you don't want to add too much because otherwise it will just peak on that particular part. I've kind of left the rest of it alone. I haven't cut the top on that, so I should slap myself on the wrist, because I really should have done in that particular instance. In fact, this is exactly what I was talking about. This sample here has been repitched, and you can see that there's erroneous details at the top of the frequency spectrum. Now, I know you could argue, well, I can't hear up to 20k, or, well, it's not important information up there, and it's not, but little clicks and things like that will be enough to prevent a limiter from pushing it a little bit harder. Or if you're looking to normalise your audio, it'll be things like little spikes like that at the top end that just make your sound cluttered, and they'll have, it's background noise. You have the technology to remove it, so if you can, remove it. In this instance, I obviously haven't, not really because I've been lazy, it's just because when you're trying to get something done, you miss on little bits like that, and it gets extremely confusing with like several hundred odd channels. Or, you know, this isn't too bad because this is like a refined project when there's only 54 tracks, but prior to deleting all the unused channels, there would have been hundreds, and it does just get very confusing, which is my excuse. So you can also cut the bottom end on here. So if I just play it, you can see that effectively all of this data here isn't necessary. Now, it is at -50, which is pretty quiet. It's not really like you're not really going to hear that through anything, but it does just make it a little bit tidier if you cut it off. So I'm just going to chop that off at 100, which is my preferred frequency for cutting off. Okay, so back to it. Also in this track we've got a little reverse bit, which is the snare played backwards but forwards. Just going to unmute that. So you can hear it. Okay. Next up we've got the clap. So the clap is layered with the snare. So let's just put this clap and the snare together quickly. So the clap in this instance is adding a majority of the tail. This is obviously done with verb. So for this particular one we've used our verb, fairly basic setting, and it's set all the way to being completely wet. This is because we're not really after any of the transients, but it does have some really nice noisy qualities that translate well when the reverb tail is compressed. So just play them both together, and then just the snare by itself, and you can see it does actually make quite a difference.